I'm Professor Peloso, strategy guru and creator of Strategy in Action. Ties, these are the links between people in organisation, in our personal lives as well, are essential. A famous paper from 1973 discussed this concept of the strength of weak ties, and the premise of this is that it's not just those strong ties, those people, teams that we're close to, from where we get our ideas, our innovation, our strength, but it's also those broader sets of links and ties, the ties that those around us have, and the ties that those ties have. So it gets broader and deeper and richer as we go. So how do we actually use these concepts? And just by the way, my strategy and action process literally is built around 3 core principles. I have 9 overall strategy keys and approximately 48 building blocks for strategic success. So all of the things that I talk about actually fit together, and it's very action oriented. I always provide not only the idea behind it, but the tools and processes that you need to action this, particularly when you're focused on what I call a milestone project. So let's continue. I want you to be really thinking about how this applies to an important project for you, how you can leverage this, use this, and start putting it together with all of the other tools and processes and building blocks that you already use, or I might give you some new ones to use or strengthen existing processes that you have in your building block kit. So let's continue here. So to me, ties, these personal links, both professional and also those more familial and in our friendship set, are crucial. And to me, there are almost 2 separate sets of ways to use these. So in other videos, I've actually talked to you about hunches. Now, hunches are those ideas, those things that spring to mind, those curiosities, those, isn't that interesting? And to me, those weak ties, so these are almost, we might say, friends of friends of friends, or colleagues of colleagues of colleagues. So these broader, more dispersed, often unusual or different or ways of thinking that we don't particularly often adopt. They're really important to be really exploring and searching when we're looking for those new ideas or those new ways of thinking, or a moment, or we have some time where we're just thinking, there's something missing from what I'm doing. Where will I look for this? And then when we start to become really, and this is my visual that I use for both exploring our stakeholder network and also actually understanding it. So here we want to dig deeper into the ties that we have around us, but we also can use this stakeholder landscape, I call it, to see what else do I need? What's not including in this? Or are there some relationships that we're too close to? We need to have other ones. So let's continue this a little bit more. I love this concept here. This is a rich picture concept. And we use this to start exploring challenges or opportunities or problems to sort of understand what's going around us in a context. This is very important as we actually start to build and structure our milestone project, because we need to understand what do we have, what's the context, what do we actually understand, what do we need to understand further, and where might we get some other ideas, or what even might be missing. So the concept of ties, or these relationships, is essential to this as we want to broaden our thinking and our opportunities. We might also then want to think about how we structure in a semi-formal way the development of a project. This is a process that I strongly encourage everybody to use. I've used this literally hundreds of times, both personally with clients, with advanced students, etc. And the Boyatzis model really is asking us to think about, in our milestone project or whatever we're working on, what's the ideal? And then where are we at? What do we currently have? What do we need? What we need to learn? And to me, those ties or relationships are crucial for here, because we can have our own point of view. We need to look for diverse points of view. We need to understand the views of our teams. So these are quite different ways of thinking. We're actually exploring deeply into our close net. And we also want to be actually understanding what's going on elsewhere. What other parts of your system, what are they doing or thinking, etc. So the thinking carefully about ties, I just want to make this point too. To me, if we talk about networking, to me it's almost abstracted the concept of our relationships. It's always about people, even if it's powered, by artificial learning, by some kind of machine learning or algorithms. Ultimately, it still is about people. So we want to be really thoughtful when we use the word network, that we don't depersonalize it. We want to be thoughtful about, this is about ideas, about people, and where they come from. Now, empathy maps or insight maps, really now we start to get down into much closer and much more deeper insights into the ways that people are actually thinking and working. And so here we really want to understand what it is that individuals or teams, what is it that they're taking to heart, and what's crucial to them. So here we're actually building on those very strong ties that we have. At the same time, we're interested also in what others think around that concept as we begin to understand more deeply thoughts and processes. And finally, a tool that I think is really important, this concept of building actual processes or systems or actions. So this helping our client or whoever is the focus of our milestone project, what needs to be done to get there. And so here we can actually focus really quite strongly on whoever the core individuals or teams or the groups that we're working on to help them achieve their outcomes. So we might call those, what are the strong ties that we have with those outcomes. Then also there are teams that are focused on delivering that. And then there's the broader context. Now I've created videos of each of these. So if you go and look in my Strategy in Action system set on YouTube, you'll find more insight into each one of these. So let's continue. How about a quick reminder about ties? So strong ties exist. I'll just read here just to be really clear. Strong ties exist between close-knit members with frequent interactions, such as family and close friends. And we also sometimes call these bridge ties. These are one-on-one. So it might be my best friend or my life partner or my boss. So these are close ties, often bridge ties we might call these. And by contrast, weak ties are typified by distant social relationships and infrequent interactions between acquaintances or strangers. And let's just broaden this a little and think more about other people in our set, or friends of friends, or acquaintances of acquaintances, or colleagues of colleagues. In fact, it's been found that sometimes it's those 7 or 8 times removed links or ties, as we might call them, that really provide different ways of thinking, really exciting, interesting. So we need to be, on the one hand, both very broad in our thinking about ties and where ideas come from, and at the same time, time is limited. So we want to be very strategic about how we go, that we want to use our time and our cognitive abilities, and whatever system you use that very wisely. Back to my point about networks, I think ties rather than networks is really important. It reminds us that people are in these structures that we're focused on. And the famous Professor Robert Cialdini, or Bob Cialdini, as those close to him know him as, one of the principles of ethical persuasion really is this concept of reciprocity. I give something to you, and then I get something in some way in return. I like to think of using ties, weak ties and strong ties, much more as giving. So we're in the giving side of reciprocity, and it is fascinating what comes back to you from where in the most unexpected ways, and often very, very unexpected things. So just a little tip there. So your milestone project, whatever it is, often it will fall into two, roughly distinct processes. So one is this green triangle kind of work. So these are groundbreaking, new, exciting, completely different, maybe a real stretch for you, out of your comfort zone, learning something quite different, doing very different things, creating something very new. And in these kinds of situations, often those distant, weak ties are the most important. They don't have to be intense relationships. It can just be reading, for example, a completely different set of journals, if you're into journals or newspapers or blogs or whatever the heck it is that you want to be exploring and researching, but unusual things or different things, or quite a broad set. If our project, our milestone project, really is refining something, getting really better at something, really enhancing something that's existing, often our stronger ties, those bridge ties, those close around us, can be much more useful. And this is important because in that case, we tend to want to concentrate our efforts, concentrate our focus. And I put this red box here. To me, this is the wisdom box. It's either the senior leaders in our organization who are making decisions about where we put our focus, our time, our energy, our resources, and whether or not we're going to focus here on the new and the creative, or enhance what we currently have, so to leverage and refine or explore. And as the leader of your milestone project, you want to be very thoughtful about how we do this. I have to say that in my line of work and my way of thinking, often there's vast amount of exploring. I'm very good at that. I collect flashcards. I use a whole lot of tools and apps and processes. Evernote, for example, just to collect things. I think I have about 10,000 flashcards with different thoughts and ideas and concepts, and that's all very well. But at the same time, I really need to do this. So I focus my work in on those 48 roughly building blocks. So just be thoughtful about how you leverage those ties, how you build those ties, how you actually think about those ties. So in your milestone project, there are, when we start to get really clear about it, so we've had our hunches, we've had these big ideas, you might already be quite a way in with this project. You might need a bit of extra motivation or some new ideas, or you might want to refine and think, okay, I am on the right track here. Always have, to me, some nice, flexible, thoughtful, too much of this heading down a track and not enough of this exploration can take us to a foregone conclusion. Exciting projects need both. They need both this exploration, and they need refinement. Sometimes they're almost mutually exclusive, but in fact, treated wisely, they're not. So that's all very well. I've prattled on about the strength of weak ties and ties generally. Now this is I must say that I've used this ties process with hundreds of situations, with clients, with executive MBA students, with people running major projects. And I always get them to literally map out how they see their relationships. And it's so interesting. So here's what we call a bridge relationship. So this is individual A, that might be me, and individual B, that's you. And we have this close bond, so this strong tie, a bridge tie. I have my set here, and you have your set over there. And there may not be any interaction between those, which means most of the exchange happens between you and me. And that can be very powerful in some way, because I bring my knowledge set and you bring yours. but it doesn't allow for all of this synthesis, these other sparks that happen between all of these other people. Now, if you look over and at me, so I must admit I really focus on helping other people build these bridging ties. So I really work at getting people to think strongly about both their bridging ties and their looser ties. This is no comment on you. I don't exactly know you, but let's just say that it's a little more scattered over there. So perhaps this might be another way to be thinking. So let's look at a couple of these. So if we looked at this example for, just by the way, what we might be seeing here is that we have this group of folks over here who are loosely connected. They have some bridges into this central group. Or you would be sitting over here. So we have this kind of ancillary group of thoughts, and this is where sparks starts to happen. If we look up here, just by the way, these sorts of processes have been digitized, and there are ways that these actually work. And sometimes, for example, these individuals way over here with this very strong tie, for example, have some really interesting, sometimes almost almost destructive potentially, but it's a voice that needs to be heard. So here's just a few examples. You can't really see these particularly well, but this one here is quite an interesting one, a real one. Small, really tight groups that are almost disconnected. This one here has a core group of people and small groups around. This one here I know happened to be a very highly performing group of people, so working on a really strong project where the leader, the senior leader, made sure that decision processes and information flows went very much around her as they came directly to her. This one, again, very central. However, this is really important because this was almost a secret kind of project, so knowledge and information had to be very tightly held on to. So this, I will give you this template to use, just a wonderful way to think about what's going on around us, who we link with, who we need to link with, who we're not linking with, and how we can leverage this concept of the strength of weak ties. So coming back here, here's a couple more tips if we're thinking about either an explore kind of project or a leverage and refine kind of milestone project. So I put it out like this. So if we're going to use the green triangle one, so this is the explore, maybe the first phase as we continue here is to go wide and weak. So what's out there? What's around us at some distance? And then phase two might be a little bit tight and strong because we want to actually now be able to refine and get more insights and see where we're at and really, take some things away, but get really cored here. And then this box, this real thoughtful decision box, get really structured about, okay, what is in this overall set of ties, and what can I leverage, and what might I park for another time. And eventually, even these green triangle explore kinds of projects need to move into, okay, now we need to focus. We need to leave those weak ties out. We need to build the strength in our team and get this really, really tight here and make this work for us. If your project, on the other hand, is more of a refined kind of project, leverage what we have, grow the existing project, you might start tight. Let's get really clear about action steps and processes and what we're going to do and where we're at now. So that might be the first phase of that. The second phase of that is then, where is it going? So what might be missing? How can we now broaden a little bit and look a little bit more broadly? And again, we're always using our wisdom box here. We're stepping back as the project driver or the senior leader or a key recipient or whoever you are in there in that project making it happen. Just by the way, I was reading a study very recently in the Harvard Business Review, and it was admittedly noting that it hasn't been published yet. This is the sort of early stages, but saying, well, we all want to find a purpose in life, but the point of this was that sometimes these smaller projects, these individual projects, these things that we put effort and energy into give us a sense of purpose and provide a lot more stimulus and excitement and interest, and they can build on each other to continue our journey to greatness, and really leveraging our strengths and capabilities and the strengths of those around us. So that's my thought about using our ties, our relationships with others, those strong bridging ties, and what have been described as weak ties.